Every single time you've tried to lose weight, you've been lying to yourself about one fundamental truth, and until you stop pretending otherwise, you'll keep cycling through the same bloody patterns year after year. You tell yourself it's about willpower, or the right diet, or finding the perfect workout routine, but deep down, in that quiet space between your excuses and your mirror, you already know what I'm about to tell you. The uncomfortable truth isn't that you don't know how to lose weight. The uncomfortable truth is that you don't actually want to become the person who stays thin. You want the results without the identity shift, the outcome without the fundamental change in who you are at your core. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to stop sabotaging yourself and finally align your deepest desires with your daily actions. You're not overweight because you lack information. You're overweight because you're terrified of who you'll become if you're not. Think about it, really think about it. Your weight isn't just pounds on a scale, it's your shield, your excuse, your comfortable prison. It's the reason you don't have to take that promotion, approach that person, wear that outfit, or step into the version of yourself that would demand more from life. I remember sitting across from a woman who'd lost 40 pounds only to gain it all back within 6 months. She stared at her hands and said something that cut right through every weight loss myth we've ever been sold. When I was thin, people expected things from me. They expected me to be confident, to speak up in meetings, to dress well, to date. I didn't know how to be that person, so I became fat again. At least fat me had permission to hide. That's the truth no one wants to discuss. Your weight isn't your problem, it's your solution. It's solving something for you, even if that something is painful. Maybe it's keeping you safe from rejection because you never have to try. Maybe it's giving you an identity as the funny fat friend, so you don't have to compete. Maybe it's providing a reason why your life isn't what you dreamed it would be. The diet industry makes billions by selling you the fantasy that weight loss is about calories and macros and meal timing. But every time you've succeeded temporarily, what happened? You got scared. Not of the food, not of the exercise, scared of the person staring back at you in the mirror. Scared of a version of yourself that couldn't hide behind excuses anymore. Your subconscious mind is protecting you from a future self you're not ready to inhabit. Until you're willing to grieve the identity you're losing and consciously choose the identity you're gaining, your body will keep pulling you back to familiar territory. The weight isn't the enemy, your relationship with change is. You've made being overweight part of your personality, haven't you? Not consciously, but in the way you move through the world, the stories you tell yourself, the role you play in your relationships. You're the one who can't wear certain clothes, who shouldn't be in photos, who obviously won't get the attention of that attractive person. It's almost convenient. Picture this, you're getting ready for a night out. You try on outfit after outfit, each one highlighting something you hate about your body. You end up in the same black dress you always wear, the one that hides everything. Your friends compliment you, but their eyes don't linger. You tell yourself it's because you're fat, but there's something deeper happening here. You're using your weight as a reason to play small, to not fully show up, to not risk being seen and potentially rejected for who you actually are. The uncomfortable truth? Sometimes it's easier to be rejected for being overweight than to be rejected for being yourself. If someone doesn't fancy you because you're heavy, well, that's not really about you, is it? It's about your body. But if someone doesn't fancy you when you're fit and confident and putting yourself out there completely, that's a different kind of pain entirely. Your weight has become your get-out-of-jail-free card for a half-lived life. I'll start dating when I lose weight. I'll apply for that job when I'm more confident. I'll take that trip when I feel better about myself. But here's what happens when you actually lose the weight. Those excuses evaporate and you're left standing naked in front of your real fears. The woman I mentioned earlier? She didn't gain the weight back because she loved food too much. She gained it back because thin her was expected to be social, ambitious, sexually confident. Fat her could stay home, avoid risks, and blame her body for her choices. Her weight wasn't the problem, it was the solution to a problem she didn't want to face. You're not failing at weight loss. You're succeeding at avoiding the life you're actually capable of living. Your body is responding perfectly to the messages your mind is sending. Keep me safe. Keep me hidden. Don't let me become someone I don't know how to be. Here's what happens in the mind of someone who loses weight and keeps it off. Something the fitness industry will never tell you because it can't be packaged into a 12-week program. They don't just change their eating habits. They fundamentally alter their relationship with discomfort, with visibility, with their own potential. Sarah was a brilliant marketing executive who'd been overweight her entire adult life. When she finally started losing weight, properly, permanently, she told me something that should be written on every gym wall. I realized I wasn't afraid of being fat. I was afraid of being powerful. Think about the thin people in your life who've never struggled with weight. Not the ones who obsess over every calorie, but the ones who seem effortlessly lean. Watch them closely. They don't just eat differently, they move through the world differently. They take up space. They speak up in meetings. They wear clothes that draw attention. They assume they belong in rooms you wouldn't dare enter. That's not because being thin made them confident, it's because their confidence allowed them to become and stay thin. They're not using their body as a barrier between themselves and their desires. They're not hiding behind excuses or making their weight the reason they can't have what they want. The identity shift required for permanent weight loss isn't about becoming someone who eats salads and goes to the gym. It's about becoming someone who believes they deserve to take up space, to be seen, to be desired, to succeed. It's about becoming someone who doesn't need protection from their own potential. Your current identity says, "I'm the type of person who struggles with weight." Your future identity needs to say, "I'm the type of person who makes decisions based on who I'm becoming, not who I've been." That's not a mindset shift, that's a complete reconstruction of your self-concept. The reason you keep failing isn't because you lack willpower. It's because every time you start succeeding, your old identity panics and pulls you back to familiar territory. Your subconscious mind would rather keep you safe and heavy than risk letting you become someone it doesn't recognize. Every transformation demands a death. The death of who you were, the death of your excuses, the death of your comfortable limitations. You can't become the person who maintains a healthy weight while clinging to the identity of someone who's always struggled with their weight. Let me paint you a picture of what this death actually looks like. You're 3 months into your journey and something strange starts happening. People notice you. They comment on your changes. Suddenly you're visible in ways you've spent years avoiding. That colleague who never really looked at you starts lingering by your desk. Friends ask what you're doing differently. Strangers catch your eye and hold it. Your first instinct? Terror. Pure primal terror. Because visibility means vulnerability, and vulnerability means the possibility of rejection. Not for your body this time, but for your soul. What if they see the real me and decide I'm not worth their time? The weight was never the real problem. It was a buffer between you and that question. Here's where most people fail. They interpret this fear as a sign they're doing something wrong, so they self-sabotage back to safety. They have a bad week that turns into a bad month. They convince themselves they're not that type of person. They retreat to the familiar prison of excuses and delayed dreams. But here's the truth that will set you free. That fear isn't a warning, it's a graduation ceremony. It's your old self realizing its time is up. The discomfort you feel isn't failure, it's metamorphosis. Butterflies don't emerge from cocoons feeling comfortable. They emerge feeling fundamentally different, and that difference is terrifying until it becomes liberating. The person you're becoming doesn't need food to cope with emotions because they've learned to feel them fully. They don't need excess weight to avoid attention because they've learned to receive it gracefully. They don't need excuses for their unfulfilled dreams because they're too busy making them reality. This transformation will cost you your victim story, your safety net, your reason for staying small. Are you willing to pay that price? You're not choosing between being fat or thin. You're choosing between being safe or free. Between hiding or being seen. Between the person you've always been and the person you're capable of becoming. Every time you reach for food when you're not hungry, every time you skip the gym when you plan to go, every time you start tomorrow instead of today, you're making a choice about who you want to be. The uncomfortable truth isn't that weight loss is hard. The uncomfortable truth is that staying overweight is often easier than facing the life you could be living. It's easier to blame your body than to blame your choices. It's easier to say I can't than to say I won't. It's easier to remain a victim of circumstance than to become the author of your own story. But here's what happens when you finally make peace with that discomfort. When you stop running from the person you're becoming, you realize that the weight was never really about the weight. It was about power. Your power to choose who you are, your power to take up space, your power to demand more from life than you've been accepting. The woman who keeps weight off doesn't have better willpower than you. She doesn't have easier circumstances or superior genetics. She simply decided that being comfortable was less important than being free. She chose visibility over safety, growth over certainty, becoming over being. Your body is listening to every story you tell yourself about who you are and what you're capable of. It's responding to every identity you claim and every limitation you accept. When you finally decide that you deserve to inhabit the fullest version of yourself, when you're willing to grieve the person you've been and celebrate the person you're becoming, your body will follow. The choice isn't whether you'll lose weight. The choice is whether you'll finally stop hiding behind reasons why you can't and start creating reasons why you will. Stop waiting for permission to become who you already are underneath all the excuses and fear and extra pounds. You don't transform by wanting it more. You transform by becoming someone who doesn't need transformation to feel worthy of love, success, and visibility. You're already enough. You just need to start acting like it.